Hello and welcome to today's 2021 FuTech Forum. My name is Jennifer. At today's session, we're looking into the future trends for precision health and also to discover Taiwan's blueprint for the next decade. So right now, we are looking into the possibility to improve and to do more personalized services for the patients. Therefore, industries like the healthcare industry and also the biotech industry must improve digitally. Currently, we're looking into the deployment of AI and machine learning technology into the daily services and also into the research field. Taiwan actually has a lot of potential by combining our supply chain, the national health data system, and also our medical strength all together to make this happen. And today, we have this great honor to invite two world-leading companies, which are Nvidia and AWS, together to show our latest industry innovation and what's their achievement want to do in the world. Before the session starts, I would like to invite Mr. Chen, the Vice Minister of Ministry of Science and Technology, to give us a welcome remark.
各位线上的观众朋友，大家好！很荣幸代表科技部出席这么具有意义的论坛，跨域发展台湾精准健康产业，超前部署2030全龄健康未来愿景。那这个主题直接说明了科技部在精准健康的布局以及未来的政策方向。相信透过今天的分享，能让各界能够了解到精准健康对我们整个社会的重要性。近年来，随着人口迈向高龄化，慢性病、癌症的人数逐渐上升，世界各国也都在积极的推动精准医疗的发展，包括美国、英国、中国等各国政府也宣布，将在未来的10年内斥资100亿美元投入精准医疗领域的研究。面对国际间强烈的竞争以及日益渐增的医疗需求，2030年全人精准健康照护体系成了我国脱颖而出的重要关键。目前，科技部规划以过去推动生医方案所奠定的基础，在原有的药品、医材以及健康福祉等产业引入数位科技、大数据资料库的应用，驱动跨域创新，以健康大数据价值及商化应用，还有服务创新服务模式，达到全民共享精准健康的福祉。同时，也加强与跨部会、跨界的合作，例如，我们与经济部携手扶植精准健康产业链，形塑台湾健康品牌，带动后续精准健康产品跟服务的输出国际，以及成立防疫科学研究中心，集结了台湾的医学的大学，共同来投入 COVID-19 抗疫和防疫的科学研究，来发展出各种智慧防疫应用。科技部在推动精准健康的过程里面，我们主要有3大方向进行。第一，完善精准健康生态系；第二，扶植精准健康产业链；第三，我们接轨国际，布局全球。希望能以台湾利基优势跟国际合作，推动我国精准健康产业发展，翻转产业创新。当然，如同我刚才提到的，在迈向精准健康的过程中，国际资源的交流对台湾来说是最好的整合机会。今天我们很荣幸能邀请到2位国外的贵宾来跟我们分享全球精准健康的最新趋势跟应用。第一位是亚马逊 AWS 全球医疗保健、生命科学、基因学的负责人 Wilson Tu 博士。AWS 是全球最全面和广泛采用的云端平台之一，在医疗保健的应用上，我们可以透过应用 AWS 平台的 AI 技术，结合基因体、临床、生活形态等数据，进行个人化预测以及预防、治疗和风险评估等研究。 第二位贵宾是来自世界上最大的 AI 新创产业生态系之一 Nvidia 的全球 AI 医疗长 Mona Flores， 将透过今天的论坛对谈，带领我们进入 AI 医疗时代，分享 Nvidia 是如何为医疗健康产业带来全面革新。期许透过这两位贵宾的分享，能够加速台湾精准健康的推动，导入更多 AI 技术的应用，让医疗保健领域加速数位转型。希望透过国际顶尖的领域专家分享，能够激发我们更多的跨域想法。在2021年未来科技馆中，我们将首次以线上展出的方式，发表近350件前瞻技术的优良成果，呈现政府6大核心战略产业的产学合作成果，解答台湾重大议题。在此，代表科技部邀请大家跟我们一起，在未来科技馆见证台湾在精准健康领域上的许多前瞻突破的学研技术。谢谢。
Thank you, Vice Minister, for pointing out Taiwan's future direction. And later, I'm going to invite our first speaker of the session. Many companies have tapped into the healthcare industry recently, and both the challenges and opportunities await in front. AWS is using its cloud technology to reinvent healthcare system and also life science organizations on how they operate, collaborate, and also most important of all, to increase the efficiency. So let's welcome Mr. Wilson Toll from AWS for giving us a speech of how AWS empowered the personalized services in healthcare system.
Hello all, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Wilson Toh, Worldwide Lead for Healthcare, Life Sciences, and Genomics at Amazon Web Services. We've seen an unprecedented change across the entire industry as organizations work together to address the global pandemic this past year. Much of this has accelerated the clear direction for health and care for individuals and populations all around the world. And that's really around the power as well as promise of personalized health. Amazon is arguably the most customer-centric company in the world. Our founder, Jeff Bezos, has built Amazon on 3 big ideas, and we've really had those stick over across the past 20 years in order to build Amazon Web Services for our healthcare and life sciences business. The first is to put the customer first and at the center of everything that we do. We start every process with the customer and work backwards from them. The second is to invent on behalf of our customers. And if we want to be inventive, we have to be willing to fail. The third is to be patient with the outcome. And that's allowed us to be stubborn in our vision, but also very flexible in the details. And we are very comfortable with being misunderstood. Our view at Amazon is if we remain obsessed with our customers, understand them and their businesses as well as they do, and innovate in collaboration with them, the business will take care of itself. And in doing so, we've seen customers use the same technologies that Amazon.com has used to transform e-commerce and apply it to transform healthcare and life sciences all around the world. Customer obsession is really at the heart of our practice. And when we describe our customers, it truly does span the entire spectrum of care. We work very closely with healthcare organizations like health systems all around the world, whether they're academic medical centers, whether they're group practices. We work with national payers as well as health ministries. We work with life sciences organizations, whether they're biotech startups or global pharmaceutical organizations. We also work with medical device manufacturers, such as those that create medical imaging devices, to those that create medical-grade wearables. We work with genomics organizations to help sequence, store, and analyze multi-omic data. And lastly, we work with agriculture organizations that not only aim to improve crop yields, but ultimately how to make food more nutritious, because it impacts individuals and populations all around the world. At the center of this shared mission across our customers and our partners is the healthcare consumer, and the work that we are doing to support the access and delivery of person-centered healthcare to drive improvement through the utilization as well as the digitization of health data all around the world to reduce costs and improve outcomes across the board. Over the past 15 years, AWS has helped remove that undifferentiated heavy lifting for organizations in their technologies in order for them to focus on that differentiated value creation for their end customers. So we've coupled a comprehensive portfolio of cloud services and solutions with world-class talent that covers the breadth and depth of healthcare, life sciences, and genomics, and have really developed a healthcare practice around this over the past 8 years to better serve our customers in each of those segments. We have industry experts that have driven digital transformation across health systems. We have those that have pushed the boundaries in discovering new biomarkers for disease detection. And we have leaders that have designed new approaches to support precision medicine at scale. This has allowed us to work very closely with our customers to not only understand where they're going, but also figuring out how we can work better and think bigger together. So not only do we supply foundational technology services that power organizations, whether it's around compute or storage or in analytics and machine learning, but we also continue to invent on their behalf, such as our portfolio of purpose-built healthcare services that cut across key areas like natural language processing, such as our services like Amazon Comprehend Medical, to transcription services for this industry, such as Transcribe Medical, that allow organizations to look across the unstructured data sets, whether it's in unstructured clinical notes, to those around clinical call centers, and find ways of deriving value and insights from that by transforming that unstructured data set to a much more structured format, and even mapping that to standard ontology terms that are globally adopted, such as ICD-10 or around RxNorm. Another key area where we've made continued investments for our customers have been understanding how they can use FHIR data and drive interoperability all around the world, whether it's through some of the work that they've been supporting and implementing using Fireworks on AWS, or some of the work that they've been building on top of Amazon Health Lake, which allows them to not only store, tag, query, but also analyze FHIR data in order to drive a much more data-driven approach to population health and individual care. These are not only new ways in which they're designing and modernizing and innovating across the healthcare space, but they're able to do so securely and reliably across a global infrastructure. So whether you need to deploy application workloads across the entire globe in a single clip, or if you want to deploy specific applications closer to where your end users are using various services that require single-digit millisecond latency, AWS does provide you with that cloud infrastructure when and where you need it. AWS has already expanded across 81 availability zones within 25 geographic regions all around the world. And the numbers do speak for themselves because there is no compression algorithm for experience. Yet through all that, security does remain job zero for us. So not only does AWS have the compliance and accreditations that span across a number of different programs and regulatory bodies all around the world, but customers are able to take advantage of the fact that there are shared learnings in that experience across over 1 million active customers that use AWS every single day. And with that, they're able to transform and accelerate some of the work that they're doing across their specific domains. For example, that's allowed us to really work closely with industry leaders to increase their pace of innovation, to really map that towards understanding how they can unlock the potential of health data and develop a much more personalized approach to not only therapeutic development, but also care. And that's resulted in the realization of how they can improve operational efficiency and really drive outcomes towards clinical and population health initiatives. We've worked closely with industry leaders such as Cerner to help transform towards a digital platform company to support their clinical as well as population health initiatives. We've worked with Change Healthcare to develop the next generation claims and payments network. We've also supported organizations like Moderna deliver mRNA drugs faster, such as what you've seen most recently with Zika as well as SARS-CoV-2 vaccine. And we've worked with organizations like Novartis to reinvent pharma manufacturing. Yet despite all of that, it's a subset of all the work that we're doing across the healthcare and life sciences industry. AWS is a trusted partner to this industry, mainly because AWS does provide that unmatched reliability, security, and data privacy that enables this highly regulated industry to increase that pace of innovation. Our scale, computing power, and deep expertise in this domain coupled with a portfolio of purpose-built services, has really established AWS as the trusted partner for the healthcare and life sciences industry all around the world. Yet, despite all the names and all the work that you've seen with customers and partners that are building on AWS today, it really is just day one for all the different types of opportunities that we can work on together. The fact of the matter is, when we look at the reality of where we are today, healthcare consumers like you and I are always so beautifully and wonderfully dissatisfied. They're seeking healthcare experiences that look like experiences in other parts of their lives, one that's more personal and one where they are at the center of. For example, Amazon provides product recommendations for other items that might be of interest based on what you're buying. Netflix helps provide recommendations to help us figure out what's the next show or movie that they should watch based on our interests. And Lyft provides ways in which to connect you from where you are now to where you need to be. Customers expect these types of personalized services not only in their healthcare journey, but also across how they're engaging with their own health. But the reality falls short. So I'm going to cover a few trends that we're seeing all around the world in the areas of personalized health and how customers are building and innovating to support these and address these. Guidelines for care, for example, are shifting from studies that are using heterogeneous patient populations with predefined characteristics and applying statistically significant outcomes from a general population to an individual for care planning. This is starting to shift more and more towards the use of an individual's own body as the guideline to better understand what is optimal for them. Multi-omics is becoming the new norm for helping organizations better understand not only the body itself, but how it reacts and how to best treat it. One initiative that stands out is some of the work that AWS is doing with Grail, a life sciences company that aims to develop blood tests to detect cancer early when treatment might be more successful. Grail is combining next-generation genomic sequencing with the state-of-the-art genomic analysis and machine learning built on AWS. This work is driving towards detecting cancer and cancer-derived signals from a patient's DNA. Grail is running one of the largest clinical research programs ever pursued in genomic medicine, and AWS enables Grail to ingest hundreds of thousands of records and genomic data sets and reliably store them and process them using a wide range of analytic and machine learning services to develop early detection products to demonstrate their clinical utility. Through a simple blood draw, their test can detect over 50 different cancer types with a very low false positive rate of less than 1% and identify where in the body the cancer is located within 93% accuracy. These are new ways in which we're using the body, specifically the genome, in order to help better understand how to individualize and personalize healthcare. Another example of some of the work that we're doing is with Astrazeneca and the work that is being driven out of the Center for Genomics Research. As they're implementing company-wide genomics initiatives, they're generating genomic data and analyzing that together with clinical data. Industry-leading genomics capabilities are used to power genomics and advanced analytics to guide key business decisions, including the identification of new drug targets, as well as providing new ways of supporting human target validation across the Astrazeneca pipeline. They have a bold ambition to analyze up to 2 million genomes by the year 2026, and up to 500,000 genomes will be sequenced from genomic samples collected from AstraZeneca's clinical studies today. With AWS, AstraZeneca supports running over 51 billion statistical tests in less than 24 hours and have facilitated already the delivery of genomic insights to more than 40 different drug discovery projects in 2020. Initiatives like this are not only accelerating drug therapeutic development, but also using the gene as a roadmap towards a much more personalized health experience and understanding drug targets and what is effective for those individuals, combining research as well as clinical deployment from bedside onwards towards an individual's own health. The second trend that we're seeing really relates to the personalization of the healthcare experience itself. It's all too often that physicians are data enterers and not given the opportunity to be better data users, to use data in a much more meaningful way, especially when we continue to see the volume of data increase, the variety of data increase, the veracity and velocity of data also increase. And those continue to rise. Clinicians want to be able to build empathy through their relationships with their patients for shared decision making. And patients want to be seen for the person in front of the clinician, not just data in front of a screen. So from ambient voice technologies being used to support clinician workflows and relationships in the exam room, to the use of machine learning to drive clinical decision support all around the world. The use of technology is starting to help bring together care teams as well as their patients. Earlier last year, Houston Methodist, for example, began working with AWS to find opportunities to bring digital transformation to patient care. With over 1.3 million clinical visits as well as 89,000 surgeries per year, Houston Methodist was interested in using automatic speech recognition to create contactless solutions to improve patient safety as well as improve the entire patient experience, all while enabling clinicians to interact with clinical applications in a much more seamless manner. The organization wanted to build using AWS ASR services such as Amazon Lex to help hospitals deliver a much more scalable, much more resilient and secure way of connecting physicians to their patients. And they wanted to start really in two areas. The first was in operating rooms, and the second was in ambulatory patient exam rooms. For their operating rooms, Houston Methodist wanted to allow their surgeons as well as support staff to interact with a digital voice assistant. That way they can use voice to query for allergies or patient medication lists that are derived off the patient's electronic health record, or find ways in which they're enabling clinicians to start and stop timers that were essential for the surgery or procedure itself. And lastly, they wanted to find ways of going through checklists in a much more seamless fashion using just their voice. In the second area, in patient exam rooms, for example, they wanted to enable new ways of driving towards capturing the dialogue between a clinician and patient in a secure and compliant manner. During an exam, for example, the dynamic conversation between the clinician as well as the patient can be transcribed and indexed for clinical relevance. And after the visit, a summary note of the interaction is automatically generated in real time and emailed to the patient, as well as inserted into the clinician's electronic health record inbox as a SOAP note. That way they can review it later to see how they can continue to take notes as well as drive towards improving patient outcomes. It's opportunities like this, using technology, that allow individuals to have much more meaningful conversations and discussions with patients around their care and drive towards a much more shared decision-making model. Another example that I wanted to bring up was some of the work that the National Health Service over in the UK is doing with AWS. The NHS Business Services Authority, for example, supports 450 call center staff that handles about 5 million calls per year with a range of routine requests for information around the European Health Insurance Card. And as a result of that influx of different types of queries as well as questions that were generally frequently asked, they saw their response time starting to lag. The NHS BSA started driving towards and deploying a solution built on Amazon Lex as a chatbot that really helps understand what questions that are being asked as well as what sort of answers to be able to reply to those individuals for. As a result of that, they were able to use AI to reduce incoming call volumes by as much as 40% for EHIC and really identify a cost savings of over $650,000 per annum in costs while reducing not only wait times but also improving the college experience because they didn't have to wait and got their questions answered pretty quickly. As some of the work that they saw, with many of the calls, about 75% of those calls were handled and resolved within 6 minutes. So as you can imagine, not having to wait on hold and waiting for your question to be answered, to finding new ways in which they're diverting some of the call volume from their staff members to this chatbot to get those questions answered. And this fundamentally transformed their call center not only workflows, but found new ways of using technologies to help improve the public service to a much more 24/7 model while reducing costs. And the beauty of this is they did this all in 2 weeks. So this is a testament to how builders can not only figure out how to innovate in the space to meet some of the challenging issues of their times, to find ways of using technology to address a much more population-based scale for how to improve not only individual experiences, but the model itself. The third area that I wanted to bring up really involves around how individuals are taking ownership of their health. And so more and more, healthcare is shifting beyond the walls of the hospital organization and beyond individual encounters in a patient's healthcare experience itself. As we see healthcare shift from a reactive treatment and care type of approach to one that is much more focused on proactive health and well-being, we begin to see how elements of our daily lives, the food we eat to the lifestyle choices that we make, are becoming determinants of our health and the healthcare journey itself that is necessary for us to better understand how to take better care of ourselves. The consumerization of healthcare has changed the entire healthcare journey for those individuals and have fundamentally transformed patients from passive recipients of healthcare to active participants in their own health. And healthcare consumers, at the end of the day, want to be educated, they want to be engaged, and ultimately they want to empower themselves to take ownership of their health. One example that I wanted to highlight for you to take a look at is the work that Propeller Health is doing in order to address chronic respiratory diseases. Propeller Health is a leading digital health organization dedicated towards making life better for every person with a chronic respiratory disease. So whether it's asthma, whether it's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, they want to find ways in which they're able to use technology to improve clinical outcomes for patients through connectivity, analytics, and companion digital experiences. The Propeller platform itself is used by patients, physicians, and healthcare organizations all around the world. So whether in the US, in Europe, or in Asia, their solution provides providers an opportunity to monitor their patients remotely, stratify their patients based on risk, and really help drive towards a data-driven decision-making model on treatment. Propeller is made up of a small custom-built sensor that attaches to a patient's existing inhaler, for example, and connects to their smartphone via Bluetooth. And Propeller and the sensor itself senses when a patient takes their medication and delivers that insights and reminders to the Propeller app on their phone itself. The Propeller also communicates with the provider's patient's provider via their provider Bluetooth and provider portal in order to demonstrate, how a patient is doing, as well as whether they need any sort of intervention. As they look towards combining new data sets and data models of understanding when a patient is using their inhaler, for example, they're also able to derive a much more risk-based approach based on different analyses and different data sets, such as the air quality index or what is going on environmentally, in order to help provide preventative health measures to, for example, stay indoors because the air quality index might be too dangerous for that individual. And so it becomes a much more proactive approach for not only engaging with individuals, but having them empower themselves to take ownership of their health using tools that are digital companions for what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. A second example is some of the work that we've seen with the work with Metro Plus Health, which is a health plan over in New York. As part of the response to the pandemic, the organization itself needed to find a way to address and engage with individuals that might be immunocompromised or those that might not be able to address and shelter in place safely through the pandemic last year. And so they worked to identify those high-risk individuals in their population base and engage with their members, sending over 10,000 SMS messages per day to understand whether an individual really needed to connect with various services, whether it was mental health services, food security networks, or find ways of doing telehealth, telemedicine visits, and connecting them with the right resources across the board. And through this, they were not only able to drive a 9% engagement across their membership base, but of those, 50% of those that responded asked for support. And so whether it was socioeconomic or clinical by very nature, they were able to address many of the critical concerns for those individuals in order for them to safely shelter in place. And so we're seeing engagement models like this really think of new ways in which they're able to transform how organizations are engaging and empowering their own populations in order to take ownership of their health. And we're seeing this scale more broadly across how population health measures or how outreach type initiatives are really starting to provide education material or provide engagement materials all around the world for organizations to connect with patients and members. These are all just some examples of some of the work that thousands of healthcare and life sciences customers are doing on AWS today. And as you can see, it's driving everything from advancing and accelerating new therapeutic developments to finding new ways of engaging and empowering individuals at a population level. I encourage each of us to consider the connective tissue across healthcare, life sciences, and genomics, and consider what's being done today and how it's driving innovation across and enabling personalized experiences, as well as personalized health at various stages across the industry. And it's evident that at the center of it all is the healthcare consumer, and how data can be used to drive a much more personalized and much more human experience through this. I wanted to thank you all for your time, and most importantly, thank you for all the work that you've done this past year to support a much more consumer-centric healthcare. I look forward to continue to collaborate with you all and innovate across this industry. Thank you again, and stay safe through this pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson-To, for giving us such an exciting speech. After AWS, let's have a look at NVIDIA's ambition. So in 2026, 2/3 of the medical image process will be conducted by AI, according to IDC's forecast. So NVIDIA is known for its groundbreaking computing power and also the AI technologies to accelerate all the industries. Let's invite Mr. Mona Flores, and she will deliver a keynote regarding on how NVIDIA revolutionized the whole industry with AI.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Mona Flores, and I'm very excited to be with you here today. As the global head of medical AI at NVIDIA, I get asked the why question a lot. Why is a cardiothoracic surgeon working at NVIDIA? And the answer, at least to me, is very obvious and very clear. AI is changing the world, and AI will be changing medicine, and I want to be part of that change. So without further ado, let's start. I'd love to begin by showing you a short video of AI in healthcare. Enjoy.
I am a healer, bringing clarity to our most important questions.
Diabetic retinopathy can happen if blood sugar stays too high over a long period of time.
And comfort in times of uncertainty.
What procedure am I having today?
You are having a bronchoscopy.
Shining a light on a path forward.
You gotta get an OR.
And finding answers when every second counts. I am watching over our frontline heroes, creating a safer place to do their life-saving work, guiding them to faster answers, and delivering care wherever it's needed. I am opening new worlds of discovery and mapping new treatments for every individual, creating a community to collaborate with thousands, and sharing knowledge that can heal millions. I am AI, brought to life by NVIDIA and brilliant healers everywhere.
So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's actually one of my favorites. To me, it brings home the point that AI is one of the most important players in healthcare technology today. Since 2012, we've pushed the boundaries of AI research and development. Now, these capabilities are converging. They're opening an exciting future for interactive AI applications that will change our lives. When it comes to using AI, medicine has traditionally lagged behind. But this is changing. We are seeing increased applications and adoption of AI in medicine, whether in clinical care, in operational efficiency, or even in drug discovery. 2020 was a breakthrough year coupling methods of AI and HPC together to speed up drug discovery, driving a huge jump in computational demand to more than 10 petaflops across R&D organizations. And we are just beginning this AI journey. And while AI is affecting each of the processes around drug discovery, AI is not just for drug discovery. AI is widening access to healthcare and decreasing medical mistakes, which leads to better outcomes, which translates into lower costs, which leads back to widening access. So as you see, it's a virtuous cycle that benefits healthcare. Unfortunately, this is not lost on anyone, and especially on world leaders today. For instance, in the US, President Biden recently proposed the establishment of ARPA-H, which stands for the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. He did this to speed research that can improve the health of all Americans. With a requested annual funding level of $6.5 billion, ARPA-H will be tasked with building high-risk, high-reward capabilities and platforms to drive biomedical breakthroughs, ranging from molecular to societal, that would provide transformative solutions for all patients. Looking forward, such initiatives, I'm sure, will become more common, with more private and more public sector investments into AI for healthcare. AI is the path to precision medicine, from intelligent instruments to improved outcomes. Digital data in all shapes and sizes is growing exponentially. According to the National Security Agency in the US, the internet is processing 1,826 petabytes of data per day. And data from medical instruments and other data such as that from DNA sequencing, from liquid biopsies, pathology, genomics, and cryo-electron microscopy will dwarf the data that we have today from YouTube and Twitter and what have you combined. In 2011, digital information grew 9 times in volume in just 5 years. And by 2020, its amount in the world is expected to reach 35 trillion gigabytes. The high demand of exploring and analyzing such big data has encouraged the use of data-hungry machine learning algorithms like deep learning. So deep learning has gained huge success in a wide range of applications like computer games, speech recognition, computer vision, natural language processing, self-driving cars, and others. It is only fair to say that deep learning is changing our everyday life. And while each instrument, each modality, each domain will have some more narrow AI, the path to precision medicine is the integration of all of this data for a broader AI. But why is AI so different than yesterday's software? It is because AI is the software that actually writes software, literally. Take, for instance, the newly released beta version of OpenAI's Codex system. With Codex, a developer can just say things in English, give a natural language prompt, like, for instance, make a user interface with 10 buttons, and Codex will automatically generate code, computer code, that does this. But it's also capable of writing much more sophisticated software than this. So imagine all the possibilities. You too can be a game developer today. In AI, we have horizontal capabilities that go across all domains, and we have vertical capabilities specific to a particular domain. With the explosion of digital data, the advancements in compute capabilities, and the novel mind-blowing algorithms, we now can build domain-specific applications, needle-moving applications for every aspect of healthcare, from radiology to cardiology to genomics to pathology. In fact, very recently, the FDA approved a new AI application from a startup called Page AI to assist pathologists in reading the pathology slides for prostate cancer. The clinical trial behind this showed that this prostate application improved detection of cancer on an individual slide image by 7.3% on average when compared to pathologists' unassisted reads. Now, this is the first such application, the first FDA-approved application for pathology, but more will follow for sure. And what makes this possible is domain-specific AI computing platforms. So where does Nvidia come into play here? Nvidia is a computing platform company innovating across the full stack, from chips to applications, at data center scales and in domains ranging all the way from graphics to scientific computing to AI to robotics. We offer our platform in 3 layers. The first layer is the hardware layer. It consists of chips and systems. The second layer, algorithms, libraries, APIs, SDKs. The third layer and the top layer is applications, services, AI skills, and frameworks. And healthcare domain-specific platform is what we actually envisioned when we built Clara. Clara is our computing platform for the healthcare domain, and it is named after Clara Barton, who founded the American Red Cross in 1881. But why do we need a healthcare-specific computing platform like Clara, for instance? Because the delivery of healthcare, as you know, is extremely complex, with healthcare staff often needing to make decisions in real time at the drop of a hat. Data is coming to us from all angles, from health records, from medical imaging instruments, from lab tests, from surgical procedures, patient monitors, and hospitals are generating 50 petabytes of data each year from medical instruments and health IT systems. Add to all of that that there's not one hospital that is the same. There's not one healthcare practice that is the same. There is definitely not one patient that is the same. With all of the diseases and all the illnesses that we have today, and we have no cure for them, ongoing and future pandemics, with all of that, we are looking for AI to help. Healthcare-specific computing platforms like Nvidia Clara, like our open source healthcare platform Monai, which is the backbone of Clara, they put healthcare AI within reach. Clara and Monai provide tools to build, adapt, deploy AI-based workflows. They are a set of libraries, pre-trained models like the COVID models that we developed with the NIH. They are application frameworks. They are reference applications to accelerate the development of healthcare applications. These platforms today, and other platforms similar to them, power AI that is being used today to advance computational genomics, biomedical and clinical NLP, imaging, intelligent instruments, computational drug discovery, and even smart hospitals. Now let's look at specific examples of AI in healthcare. So as genomic sequencing costs decreased and newer, more efficient sequences came to the market, projects like the Million Vet program, for instance, became possible. But the amount of data that is associated with these programs is staggering, and analyzing it is getting more complex by the day, if not the hour. Today, there are AI computational frameworks supporting genomics applications from DNA all the way to RNA. Nvidia Parablex is one such application. It is a complete portfolio of off-the-shelf solutions coupled with a toolkit to support new application development to address the needs of genomics labs. It is accelerating analytics across this entire genomic workflow, from sequencing all the way to variant calling and to tertiary analysis. And while faster analysis of genetic data is certainly helpful for understanding diseases, discovering therapies and drugs to combat disease is an incredibly complex problem. The pharmaceutical industry has major challenges from high development costs to long development times and very low success rates. Drug discovery today is a multidisciplinary endeavor that today takes more than 10 years and fails almost 90% of the time. AI is an invaluable drug discovery tool to shorten this process. Over the last couple of decades, we have made tremendous progress in digitizing biology, building computational methods for simulating biology and chemistry. And in the process, we unleashed an avalanche of biomedical data. Today, the world is able to produce more data in 3 months than in the last 300 years combined. Understanding this vast data is a computational problem with massive complexity that can benefit from AI and from transformers. But what are transformers? Transformers are a type of neural network architecture that is proving to be extremely useful. They are developed to solve the problem of neural machine translation. That means any task that transforms an input sequence to an output sequence, kind of like when in the codex application earlier we said you give it human language and it produces computer code. These transformer-based neural network architectures, they have become available in the last couple of years, but they are very skilled at learning the language of many diverse data types using unsupervised learning. Now we're talking unlabeled data sets. After pre-training, then they can be fine-tuned to a specific task using supervised learning and using specific labeled data sets. Transformers have superhuman capabilities in tasks like translation, summarization, language generation, patient cohort creation, Q&A. Think chatbots, think call center support systems. You can also use these models for creating new drugs, for protein folding, for image analysis. They can predict the protein structure from an amino acid sequence. And some pharma companies are already using these models today to come up with drugs at unprecedented speed. Take in silico medicine, for instance. They actually were one of the pioneers of these methods. And recently, they were able to develop a novel preclinical drug for idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis using these generative models. And most recently, transformers are being used for even back for imaging. They are being used for image generation and analysis, like, for instance, the UNETR model for organ segmentation. To build these models, Nvidia created Megatron. Megatron is a framework purpose-built to train giant transformer models. This is done across multiple GPUs, across multiple nodes, with fast data loading and fast unloading and scheduling. It basically uses every accelerated computing invention that Nvidia has today. Megatron reduces training time so we can train huge models with equally huge unlabeled datasets. So Megatron helps us build these models, but where do we actually build them? Recently, we inaugurated Cambridge One, which is the fastest AI supercomputer in the UK, providing a sandbox for experiments at unprecedented scale. Cambridge One has 80 Nvidia DGX A100s and 400 petaflops of AI compute. And this is where MegaMolBART, the most recent chemistry NLP transformer model, was trained. This was done by Astrazeneca. And MegaMolBART understands the language of chemistry and makes possible the generation of drug molecules that it has never seen before. Here's a short video clip that describes how MegaMolBART works.
The incorporation of AI and deep learning is accelerating what has traditionally been a time-consuming step. Next, we will discuss a state-of-the-art deep learning model used in lead optimization. Transformer-based deep learning models have shown tremendous promise in biomedical research and drug discovery. These uses include protein structure prediction, generative chemistry, biomedical NLP, and molecular diagnostics. Today, we will be discussing an example from generative chemistry. MegaMolBART is a transformer-based generative model utilizing the Nvidia Megatron framework, which has been developed in collaboration with Astrazeneca. MegaMolBART was trained using millions of commercially available compounds from Zinc-15, a database built specifically for virtual screening. Running on powerful GPU-based hardware such as an Nvidia DGX SuperPod, MegaMolBART is deployable within Clara Discovery and can quickly generate novel molecules for further investigation. These results, generated using AI that understands millions of molecules, increase the probability of successful downstream experiments. Let's explore the results of a virtual screen that identified hits from the Chembl database predicted to bind to 3-chymotrypsin-like protease, a SARS-CoV-2 drug target. We'll look at how NVIDIA's rapid suite of software libraries can cluster molecules by similarity in just a few seconds. The molecules represented here were first featurized by calculating Morgan fingerprints, which are a binary vector representing the molecule. Next, RAPIDS was used to reduce the dimensionality of the data with PCA and UMAP. And finally, K-means was applied for cluster assignment. The UMAP projection of the Chembl compounds is shown in the plot, with colors corresponding to cluster identity. Compounds identified in the virtual screen are plotted with large diamonds. They are also shown in the table, where columns with molecular properties can be added and removed. Next, 2 hits from the SARS-CoV-2 virtual screen are selected, and MegaMolBART infers 5 compounds between them in the molecular latent space it has learned. In this table, the compounds selected from the screen are shown at the top and bottom. The 5 generated compounds are in between. These new compounds are novel AI-generated molecules which can be prioritized for further study by scientists and researchers. The Cheminformatics Search and MegaMolBART Clara Discovery modules will be available on NGC.
So as you just saw, MegaMolBART is great for chemistry. But how about models that understand medical language, that understand doctor speak, if you may? We recently partnered with the University of Florida and Florida Health to put up HyperGator AI. HyperGator AI surpassed Cambridge 1 with 140 DGXs, DGX A100s, and 700 now petaflops of AI compute. This is the fastest US supercomputer for AI today. HyperGator AI is the compute foundation for building all sorts of healthcare applications, including Gatortron. So like MegaMolBART, Gatortron is a transformer model, but instead of chemistry, it understands clinical language. Gatortron was pre-trained on the last 10 years of electronic health records from the University of Florida and Florida Health that contains over 300 million unstructured clinical notes from 2 million patients. This allowed us to create the world's largest clinical model at 3.9 billion parameters, achieving state-of-the-art performance on a variety of benchmarks, such as named entity recognition, question answering, clinical semantic similarity search. It even beat the University of Florida's own existing engineered de-identification task. Nvidia DGX and Megatron have put this capability of building language models within reach of every medical center today. Learning the language of these specific institutions and fine-tuning on their own labeled datasets has unlimited healthcare applications, from matching patients to life-saving clinical trials, to predicting patient complications, to physician decision support. But let us not forget that even before NLP and all of its promise, AI was already changing medicine, and medical instruments were at the center of this. Today, we have incredibly capable sensor technology that is allowed to benefit from the most important R&D breakthroughs to aid in the practice of medicine. We see this in devices today that can, 1, detect arrhythmias through our phones and watches. They can also do precise localization of disease for tumor ablation procedures, where real-time processing and visualization is key. We see it in more sophisticated CT scanners and ultrasound machines and endoscopes and MRI scanners. Take, for instance, the new mobile MRI from Hyperfine. This is a mobile scanner that you can push next to a patient in the ICU, or even perhaps load it on a helicopter and maybe take it to a field hospital. Imagine how this can change battlefield medicine and how you can take better care of soldiers injured on the field. Most of these devices have embedded GPUs that allow them to do AI on the edge. But they also can communicate with data centers, and they can communicate with the cloud. So besides intelligent instruments, we now have AI applications that enable us to deliver faster and faster imaging via software. Let's take medical imaging such as PET scans and MRIs, which range in duration from 30 minutes to more than an hour and can be pretty uncomfortable for patients. AI is changing that. Today, there's a company called Subtle Medical that has 2 FDA-cleared solutions that cut the exam time to a quarter of its original time, while still retaining the original image quality. The brain MRI product, Subtle MRI, not only reduces the scan time, but uses also only 10% of the contrast material that was previously needed. And then we have AI that can enable virtual biopsies. At the Mayo Clinic, researchers were looking at glioblastoma, a form of brain cancer. They are studying imaging biomarkers and imaging genomic signature, if you may, that can differentiate between the different kinds of glioblastomas without having to study the specific mutation under the microscope. What does that mean? It means that now we can start treatment without having to go and do surgery and take a brain biopsy from the patient. A game changer. We also have other AI-infused software that allows for earlier detection of disease. For example, there's an application from a company called IDX, which is actually FDA approved to diagnose if a patient has diabetic retinopathy, which, as you know, if not detected and treated in time, can cause blindness. But depending on where you live, you might not be able to see an ophthalmologist to get a diagnosis in time. So IDX changes that. Today, thanks to AI and IDX, the diagnosis can be done automatically at a primary physician's office or even at your local drugstore. And we have AI for early detection of heart disease. So until recently, the gold standard for diagnosing blockages in the arteries of your heart was to go and get an invasive procedure called an angiogram. Heart flow is changing this whole classical paradigm of treating a heart disease. Before, if there was any suspicion of coronary artery disease, the patient would get a stress test to determine if they have any signs of this. And then following that, they would have to go and get this invasive angiogram. And following the angiogram, then we could decide on a treatment, whether it's a stent or surgery or what have you. With heart flow, now you can skip both of these tests in elective cases. And again, this is just in elective cases today. And you can get a CT scan. And from that CT scan, you can determine the best treatment course directly. There's also AI that can help in triage. So think of radiologists who are having to read hundreds of scans a day. Now, instead of a work list being generated by time or by place of study, you can have an FDA-cleared AI application from ADOC that is always running in the background that suggests a priority list for reading these imaging studies that is based on the findings of the study as determined by AI and not by the time the study came in. But it doesn't stop here. How about helping surgeons get better results? Calibre AI is one such company. Their first product is helping orthopedic surgeons during arthroscopic shoulder surgery. Not only do they identify structures on a small field of vision, now you don't have to go panning in and out all the time to be able to see these structures, but it also quantifies some of the measurements that are needed in such surgeries, such as perhaps the percent of bone defect in this shoulder socket and other measurements. And of course, we also have AI algorithms that make possible the production of dashboards to follow disease trends over time and geography. like the one released by Johns Hopkins University during this pandemic. I'm sure we've all seen that. Such dashboards can be and are powered by AI. AI applications continue to expand to address all sorts of needs, from caring for aging populations to allocation of scarce resources to managing pandemics to reducing costs. For example, after a fall in the hospital, mortality risk increases significantly, especially in elderly patients and especially in female elderly patients. This delays discharge significantly, costing up to $35,000 in additional costs. And healthcare delivery is increasingly more challenging, with hospitals and clinics having to do more with less resources. With COVID-19, the system was stretched to its limits. Scarce healthcare workers became even scarcer. According to the CDC, 9,300 healthcare workers in the US alone contracted COVID-19 in the first 2 months of this pandemic from exposure to patients, from direct exposure to patients. AI is helping solve these problems by making sense of sensor data. Smart sensors, such as cameras and speakers, can act as eyes and ears to ensure safety and operational excellence of healthcare facilities, as well as advanced care for patients. And smart sensors to measure for fever or compliance with protective gear, smart sensors to monitor crowds and evaluate social distancing, and to interact with high-risk patients. All of this can keep both patients and staff safe and informed. And one of the latest additions to the AI world in healthcare, which can be used to train all of the algorithms and power all of the applications I just spoke about today, is federated learning. Healthcare environments are continuously changing, and healthcare data is spread all over the world. To build robust AI applications, which need a lot of data, we need to adapt to the changing environment and learn from diverse data and a large amount of data. We need an AI training framework that can live on the edge and learn from data at local sites. Federated learning does exactly that. But what is federated learning? I see it simply as a game of hide and seek. You hide the data, but you seek the knowledge. Hide and seek. You are able to train an AI model from distributed data without having to centralize the data, without needing to see the data, without ever having access to the data. In September of 2021, we published in Nature Medicine the largest real-life clinical federated learning study to date. How did this come about? In the past year, and spurred by the pandemic and everyone's desire to help, we embarked on a collaboration with 20 different hospitals around the world using federated learning to help in triaging patients with symptoms suspicious of COVID. Let's watch a short video here that summarizes this study.
In 2020, COVID-19 introduced an unprecedented challenge to the world. As hospital beds filled and resources like ventilators and medical staff stretched thin, that challenge became a crisis. An urgent response was needed, and it called for the combined efforts of the world's research and healthcare communities. But how can researchers in different hospitals work together to anticipate shortages in critical resources to better meet patient needs? The answer is AI-powered Nvidia Federated Learning. Nvidia partnered with Mass General Brigham to develop an AI model that could predict the oxygen needs of patients with COVID-19 symptoms. To maximize the model's accuracy and benefit as many patients as possible, they turned to Nvidia Federated Learning. How does it work? Federated Learning lets multiple institutions collaborate on AI model training, helping them develop more accurate models than they could on their own. By leveraging diverse datasets, the volume and quality of data is increased. And because only model parameters, not the data itself, are shared with the centralized server, data privacy is preserved. 20 institutions from across the globe joined the initiative. The results? A 16% improvement of the average performance measured across all participating sites, and an average increase of 38% in generalizability when compared to models trained at any single site. The model was further tested at 3 hospitals independent from the original 20 institutions, and the results were exceptional. For predicting ventilator need within 24 hours of a patient's arrival in the ER, the model achieved a sensitivity of 95% and a specificity of over 88%. This is the first step toward future clinical deployment. This study showed that federated learning is a powerful tool that can build globally robust AI models without sharing data. Critical industries, from energy to financial services to manufacturing, can use it to maximize the benefits of AI. To learn more about federated learning, visit the link in this video's description.
Federated learning is being used today to develop solutions not only in clinical care, but also in medical device instruments, in pharmaceutical companies. Actually, one pharma company, Bayer, recently finished a pilot study in federated learning in the hopes of using it to scale their R&D efforts and to develop new digital business models for them. And federated learning is not just for pharma. Other industries, from automotive to energy to finance, will benefit from using federated learning. So it is for medicine and beyond. So as you see, AI is augmenting our abilities, and with new training paradigms, platforms, and computing methods, it will revolutionize healthcare delivery and get us to the holy grail, precision medicine. So as President Barack Obama simply said, you wouldn't give everyone with a broken arm the same cast, and people who need glasses aren't all wearing the same prescription. So let me ask you, why are we still doing today exactly that? Why are we treating our most vulnerable patients, our sickest patients, like they're all the same? Precision medicine is a must, and AI will get us there. Thank you.
After today's keynote, now we know technology can actually bring a lot of innovations and possibilities to the healthcare industry. Thank you for your participation today, and we hope to see you online soon. If you want to discover more topics around space tech, AIoT applications, sustainability and environmental technologies, or the latest innovation trends on fighting against the pandemic, please follow us. And also, if you want to leave us some comments, please scan the QR code on the next page and feel free to leave any feedbacks and suggestions. We hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.